Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you are joining us. I am your host, Katie Milton Jordan, and we are here for today's AI action class. We are currently working through the book, The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And let's get into it. Okay, so The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Meeting times are March 19th, April 2nd, April 9th, which is today, and April 23rd. So we do encourage you to support the authors and read the book. The best way to go deep on these ideas is to read The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. This workshop is a starting point and the book is the full experience. So in our AI action classes, we help you to learn AI fluency by working with the concepts in the book. And here is the agenda that we always follow during our AI action classes. We have a brief welcome and context. Then we spend a few minutes talking about the concepts, both AI concepts and the concepts in the book. Then we have about 20 to 25 minutes to actually build with AI. We will create our own custom deliverables based on the concepts in this book. Then we will come back together as a community and share feedback, insights, and Q&A. So the core idea from The Gap and the Gain is that there are two ways to measure yourself. You can measure yourself against an ideal that is impossible to reach, or the alternative is to measure backward from where you started. That is the gain. So it's the same progress, but it's a completely different experience. Because when you measure the gap going forward, you're always comparing where you are to where you think you should be, and you're always falling short. Perpetual dissatisfaction regardless of real progress. However, when we flip that script and we measure the gain, we are actually measuring backward. We compare where we are to where we started, recognizing real progress, building confidence, gratitude, and momentum from what's actually happened. So here are the 4 workshops in this Gap and Gain AI Action Class series. In workshop 1, we went from the gap to the gain, measuring what matters, and we created a gap and gain audit. It was an assessment of where we were measuring from the gap across work and life, and we created reframes to gain-based measurement. In workshop 2, we worked on transforming experiences into gains, and we created a gain extraction journal. It was a structured reflection tool that converts your last 90 days of experiences into measurable gains. And today in workshop 3, we are going to be focusing on engineering your reference points. So we're going to take control of what we measure against by designing intentional reference points. So the key topics we're going to be working through today are the danger of external ideals, creating internal benchmarks, designing your own scorecard, and comparing yourself to your previous self. And by the end of today's workshop, we are going to create a personal progress scorecard. This is a custom dashboard of the 5 metrics that matter most, measured backward from where you started. And our workshop 4 is going to be bringing all of this together to build a gain thinking operating system. This is a gain thinking daily system. So back to our AI formula. AI formulas and long prompts share some similarities, but they are not exactly the same. I would argue that an AI formula is better than a long prompt, and there are a couple reasons why. So the first thing I want to bring your attention to is this AI formula that is illustrated on the screen. Now, it is a long prompt. But the other thing that is unique about the AI formulas that we create is we bake in some specific rules to help us work with these tools in better and more effective ways. So the first one is we ask the AI to run the workflow step by step so that the AI can dynamically change its questions and answers based on the context that we give it. So trying to run a long prompt where it doesn't give you questions or answers step by step can make working with the long prompt very difficult. The other thing that we do in the AI formula is that we give it a lot of context so that the AI doesn't take us down a rabbit hole that we didn't intend. So we really give it guardrails saying this is what we're focused on, this is the outcome we want to produce, this is our goal, stay within those lines. So that's a basic difference between AI formulas, AI workflows, and long prompts. So now we're going to jump into our application exercise. We're going to spend the next 20 to 25 minutes doing the application exercise. A couple best practice reminders that I want to share with you is to always work on your work. We don't want to use theoretical or hypothetical or synthetic data whenever possible. We always want to bring a real challenge from our business or life while we are learning by doing with AI. Remember that this is also your time to learn and explore. So you have opportunities to learn and explore not only the concepts that are in the book, The Gap and the Gain, but also the concepts around AI fluency. So as you're working with your LLM, remember that you are the human with your hands on the wheel, and you can ask AI to go in any direction that you feel would be helpful for you. This is an example of how we are able to customize and personalize education at scale with AI. Remember that if you can't think of answers to the questions that the AI gives you, ask the AI to help. It can make suggestions based on what it knows about you, and it can also make suggestions based on what it knows about best practices for the subject matter that we are working with. And if you get stuck, just speak to the AI as though you were giving instructions to an in-person assistant, not as though you wanted, for example, if AI gives you a wrong answer, explain to the AI that's not what I wanted and give it instructions for how you want it to try again. So these are a couple best practice recommendations for when you are working with your AI. So now I am going to direct everybody to our public drive, which can be found at bit.ly/AI formula, all caps, one word, and Chelsea will share that in the chat with everybody so that you can go to that link and pull up our public drive. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So bit.ly/AI formula, all caps, one word. It is going to bring you to my public Google Drive here. There are a variety of AI action classes in here that are available to you for free. Many of the replays are also hosted on my YouTube channel. But today we're going to go into the Gap and the Gain folder right here. You can see we have the AI workflow prompt for Workshop 1, Workshop 2, and today we are working on Workshop 3. So I'm going to go ahead and open our AI workflow for today. Now, whenever you are looking at an AI workflow, I always encourage people to read the introductory paragraph so that we have some context about what we're going to be doing with the AI today. So the instructions are telling the AI that you are an expert in gap and gain thinking, drawing on the principles from Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Your role is to guide me through creating a personal progress scoreboard, which is a custom dashboard of the 5 metrics that matter most to me, measured backwards from where I started rather than forward against an ideal. At each step, you will explain where we are in the process, asks for context to complete the step, perform the action, confirm completion, and only then move on to the next step. The goal is to finish a complete personal progress scoreboard by the time we reach the final step. Now, I also like to spend a few minutes looking at each one of the steps in the AI workflow so that we can begin to envision what the AI might be asking us about. So in step 1, AI is going to ask us to identify what actually matters. In step 2, AI is going to ask us to define the backward metric. In step 3, we are going to set our gain baselines. Step 4, we're going to design the review rhythm. Step 5, we're going to create the final deliverable, which is a personal progress scoreboard. So what we need to do is we need to go to the bottom of this AI workflow. I want you to go ahead and copy the entire AI workflow, and then we're going to open the preferred LLM that you would like to work with today. And I have been using Claude as my daily driver, so we are going to use Claude here. I'm going to be using the Sonnet reasoning model 4.6. I've been experimenting with the different reasoning models, and I'm finding that Haiku doesn't really pay enough attention to detail, and Opus 4.6 burns through tons of tokens. So we're going to go right in the center here with Sonnet 4.6. I'm going to say run this workflow step by step, and I'm going to paste the workflow right there, and we're going to get into it. Okay, welcome to your personal progress scoreboard. I'm your personal progress scoreboard coach. We're going to help you build something that will actually change how you see your own growth. The core idea: most people measure themselves against ideals, the income they should have, the body they should be in, the business they should have built by now. That forward measurement creates a gap that never closes because the ideal always moves. A gain-based scoreboard flips the lens. You measure backward from where you started, and suddenly the evidence of real growth becomes undeniable. So here are the 5 steps. We're going to identify what actually matters. We're going to define your backward metrics, set your gain baselines, design your review rhythm, and create the final deliverable, which is the personal progress scoreboard. So here it says, before we dive into step 1, would you like a quick refresher on gap versus gain thinking, or are you ready to jump right in? And I am going to go ahead and hit refresher because I want to illustrate, especially for any new folks that are joining us today, how we can learn by doing with AI and how this tool gives us an opportunity to go deeper into concepts in the book that we might be interested in. So here we have a refresher on the gap and the gain, the core problem, the alternative, why this matters for a scoreboard. A traditional dashboard measures you against targets you haven't hit, which means you're always losing. A game-based scoreboard measures the distance you've already traveled, which means every honest check-in confirms real movement. So one thing worth naming, Katie, so here the AI has worked with me a lot. It knows me very well. So it's already giving me some personalized advice. It says, given everything you've built in the last 12 months, Claudia, CEO operating system version 3, the AI workflow expert certification, multiple client deliverables, the Townie, you have an unusually rich evidence base to work with. The scoreboard is going to hit differently, which of course I love hearing. So ready to move into step 1? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Let's identify what actually matters. We're cutting through the noise to find the 5 areas where real movement would actually change how you experience your life. Not where you think you should be improving, not what looks good on a framework, but what genuinely matters to you right now. So here are my 3 questions. Take as much space as you need. The more honest your answers, the more powerful your scoreboard will be. Question 1, if you could only improve 5 things over the next year, what would they be? Think across work, health, relationships, finances, creativity, and personal growth. But don't let the categories constrain you. What actually comes to mind? Question 2, for each one, why does this area matter to you specifically, not in theory, but in your daily lived experience? What does it feel like when this area is working? What does it cost you when it's not? And question 3, are any of these areas ones where you've been measuring yourself from the gap, comparing yourself to an ideal and quietly feeling behind, even when things are objectively going well? Take your time, answer however feels natural. A list, a stream, a thought. However it comes out, we'll organize it together. One thing I do want to share with you guys as I'm getting ready to respond to these questions is actually 2 comments. The first comment that I want to share is that I have done these AI action classes every single Thursday since December of 2025. So sometimes I forget what it's like to be a newcomer. So if you are a newcomer and this is your first class with us, please forgive me because sometimes I forget what I've learned along the way, and there'll be some important points that I may forget to tell you in each one of the action classes, which leads me to the point that you guys have an opportunity to either run this workflow with me the same time that I'm demonstrating this to you. You can do this the same exact time, run this workflow in your own LLM, or you are welcome to watch the demonstration first and then run the workflow afterwards. Depending on your comfort level and how you like to learn, you may choose one option over the other. Both are okay. Just want you to know that you don't have to be keeping up with me if this is your first class with us and you're seeing this stuff for the first time. You're going to have an opportunity to run this independently after the demonstration is done. However, if you've been around for a while and you feel comfortable running this at the same time, please do so. The other thing I want to remind you of is that the answers that you're seeing on my screen or how I'm interacting with AI may not be the exact same way that you interact with AI on your screen, right? Because AI has the ability to customize its questions, its answers, and how it interacts with us based on how we interact with the AI. So don't be alarmed if your AI is asking you slightly different questions based on what it knows about you, or the content on your screen doesn't look exactly the same as mine. That is not a bug, it is a feature. That is by design. So with that, those reminders shared, let's go into answering these questions. And I am going to be using my Whisper Flow tool that allows me to dictate to my computer, which is just another productivity hack, and also allows me to leverage a stream of consciousness, and I don't have to perfect my answers. Okay. If I could only improve 5 things over the next year, they would be health, finances, creativity. Let's just go with health, finances, and creativity. We don't need 5 things because I think that that's probably enough. Health, I am currently on a healthy healing journey that is really important to me, and improved health and healing would be a very valuable thing for me to improve over the next year. Finances are also important as a solopreneur or self-employed individual of a small agency. So I'm actively working to solve the feast and famine cycle and improve finances. Creativity is something that is also very important to me because I feel like I've spent way too many years working way too hard and burning myself out. I would like to compress some of my work time and move back into a creative space for those outlets. I definitely don't want personal growth. I've had enough personal growth. No more personal growth. Okay, so you can see that text has populated on my screen. I'm going to move down and go on to question 2. I think I gave you enough information in response to question 1 so that you understand why those areas matter to me specifically, but also you are welcome to add details to that based on what you know about me. And in response to question 3, are any of these areas ones where you've been measuring yourself from the gap? I would say probably all of them. As humans, it seems like we are taught to measure the gap in almost everything we do. For example, think about our education system, or think about our career compensation systems, or how we are incentivized as individuals. I think that we are probably all programmed to measure the gap instead of the gain. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and give AI those responses. It's going to clarify what it heard from me. Let's complete your what matters map. So we have health, why it matters in my own words. We've got the current measurement method, likely symptoms, energy levels, how you feel day to day, but probably informal and inconsistent. Gap or gain, measuring against well as an ideal that keeps moving. Finances, revenue in and out, probably month to month, anxiety rather than trend-based measurement, comparing to a stable income ideal that feels perpetually out of reach, and creativity. Years of overwork and burnout have crowded out creative expression. Reclaiming isn't a luxury, it's a reclamation of a core part of who you are outside of productivity. So gap measuring against a version of yourself that should already have more space for this. 3 areas, if they moved, would change how you feel every single day. That's the right list. So do these areas feel right? So AI is asking me to either edit the responses or make suggestions. And this is where I should probably also remind you, especially if you're new, that AI is really, really good at creating the first iteration of something. In fact, AI is better at creating the first iteration of something than humans are. And that's why we call writer's block writer's block. Humans are actually better at editing the first draft that the AI gives us. So this is the moment where you want to edit what AI has given you in its first draft. Remember, you are the human in the loop. You are the arbiter of quality. You are the one that's going to tell AI what good looks like. However, in this instance, I gave AI enough good context that it clarified it perfectly. That is correct. Please move on to step 2. Now we're going to define your backward metrics. Measure the distance between then and now. The difference feels subtle, but it's everything. Am I healthy yet? Keeps you in the gap forever. How has my body's capacity changed since October? Gives you real measurable ground to stand on. Here are my 3 questions. Health, finances, and creativity. For each of your 3 areas, where were you 6 to 12 months ago? What was specifically true about your situation? The honest picture of your starting point is what makes the gain visible. For each area, what's a concrete way to measure the distance between then and now? Something you could point to and say, that's real, that actually happened. For each area, what unit of measurement feels honest and meaningful to you, not a vanity metric, not someone else's scoreboard. For example, finances might not be total revenue, it might be the number of months with predictable income. Health might not be a number on a scale, it might be a number of days I felt like myself. Those are very good examples. So let me answer these questions. Where was I 6 to 12 months ago in regards to health, finances, and creativity? 6 months ago, I was feeling even more overwhelmed and discouraged. It was probably 6 months into my journey of going back to work for myself. So my revenue was way below where I wanted it to be, and had to humble myself and ask for assistance from friends and loved ones in terms of emotional support, so on and so forth. That was directly related to finances, and is also directly related to creativity because I was trapped in a cycle of always feeling like I had to perform in order to get where I wasn't yet at, and that limited the amount of time I was able to work on creative endeavors. Concrete way to measure distances, I'm not actually sure. So I would like you to make some suggestions on what are some concrete ways to measure distance based on what you know about me. And again, in regards to question 3, please suggest some unit of measurements that you think would provide the proper reframe for me to make progress in these areas. So again, you can see that I'm actually asking AI for some suggestions. Instead of having to make this heavy emotional lift all by yourself, you can ask AI to help. And remember, as the editor, you get to say, no, AI, that's not quite what I wanted. Please do this instead. Or, yeah, that's exactly what I needed to hear, and thank you for the suggestion. So the picture of 6 months ago is exactly the kind of real starting point that makes a gain scoreboard powerful. Let me build out some suggestions. Health, concrete distance measures, number of days per week you have enough energy to do meaningful work without pushing through. Number of symptoms or flares that interrupted your week, trending down is the plan. I like that. Actually, Chelsea and I just had a call yesterday where we talked about how both of us have been burning the candle at both ends. And there are some days where you just crash. Number of days you honored a health protocol. Excellent. Yes, I've also been working on my bedtime routine and sleep hygiene and improving that. So, suggested unit days I felt like myself, tracked weekly, not a clinical metric. Actually, I want to go with number of symptoms. I'm going to do this one instead. So instead of the suggested unit that AI is giving me. So I'm going to paste that in there. So for finances, concrete distant measures, number of consecutive months with baseline expenses covered without stress or outside assistance. I really like that because I do have a baseline monthly household expense that I need to meet every single month. And the number of consecutive months that I reach that feels like real progress to me. So I'm going to go with this. Predictable ground, meaning months where you knew roughly what was coming in before the month started. 6 months ago, that number was likely 0. That was true. I was starting at 0. So let's do this one. Number of consecutive months with baseline expenses covered without stress. And then for creativity, number of hours per week spent on creative work that has no deliverable attached to it. Wow, that's really hard. I already feel like I'm breaking out in hives thinking about that. Number of creative projects started or completed that weren't client work. Number of weeks where creative time was protected and actually happened. Actually, I'm going to change this deliverable completely. And what I'm going to measure for creativity, I want to measure how many days a week I sing. Now, this might sound like a weird metric, but I'm noticing that's my preferred creative outlet. And so even if it means singing along with the radio or in my car or whatever it is, that also indicates to me a health trend as well. So that's what I'm going to use for my measurements. Okay, so this is the feedback that I'm going to give AI. Perfect. That's my scoreboard. Those 3 choices tell me a lot. You didn't pick vanity metrics. That's right. Nobody is going to measure how many days I sing except for me. How many days I sing might be the most honest creativity metric I've ever helped someone build. Well, thank you, AI. Backward metrics table, health. We want to trend down for symptom flares interrupting weekly function. So far this week, I've only had 1. Okay, finances, 0 consecutive months of covered baseline expenses without stress or outside help. Gain metric, number of consecutive months with baseline expenses covered independently. And creativity, number of days per week I sing. Do these metrics measure? Yes. So I'm going to say yes, and it's going to move me on to step 3. Set your gain baselines, documenting where you've already been so every future measurement is a comparison to actual history, not an imaginary finish line. This step often surprises people. When you put your baseline and your current position side by side, the gain that's been invisible suddenly becomes undeniable. So for each metric, what's the honest baseline? Where were you at your starting point roughly 6 months ago? Be as specific as you can. Healthy, how many symptoms, flare, interruptions per week roughly? Finances, creativity. Oof, gosh, this is a tough one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this and give it a number. Let's say 2 to 3. And then for finances, how many consecutive months of covered baseline expenses? Actually, 6 months ago, that was probably 0. My husband did a lot of heavy lifting during that time. Bless his heart. Creativity, how many days a week were you singing? I'm going to say 0.5. Okay. Where are you at right now? So I'm going to add a past note here, past. Then I'm going to add a current so we can actually see how we have moved. How many health system? Okay, we're going to go to 0.5 to 1. How many consecutive months of covered baseline expenses? I think I'm close to 6 now. Yay. How many days per week are you singing? Let's go 3 to 5. So I can already see those gains right there, right? See, now AI, stop and look at that for a second. Thank you, AI. I already made that connection. Before I build the table, I need you to actually see. Here is Well, AI is probably being a little bit hyperbolic, but that's not incremental progress. That's a complete structural transformation. I don't know if I'd say that. That's 6 consecutive months. But, again, maybe that's me measuring the gap and not the gain. You cut your symptom load by 60 to 70%. All right. Okay. That's a real metric. I can get with that. You reclaimed something that has gone almost silent. That's not a metric. That's you coming back to yourself. That is the gain. Okay. So gain baseline dashboard. We've got our metric. We've got our baseline, we've got our current, we've got our gain. So health, 70% reduction on interruptions. Finances, 6 months of stable ground built from zero. And gain today for creativity, 6 to 10 times increase in creative expression. And then here is the evidence. So that looks great. Let's move to step 4. A scoreboard only works if you look at it. And looking at it only happens if it's anchored to something that already exists in your life, not added as a task on an already full plate, right? We can say that again. Nobody needs another task on an already full plate. Sullivan and Hardy are clear on this. The gain is a practice. Not a mindset trick. The scoreboard has to become a habit or it becomes a document you made once and never opened again. That makes me think about gratitude, right? It's about what are we looking forward to? What are we grateful for, right? This is a practice. 3 questions. How often do you want to check your scoreboard? Daily, weekly, monthly. Keep in mind you have 2 weekly metrics, 1 monthly metric. What feels sustainable without becoming a chore? Question 2, when in your existing routine could you naturally pause to measure backward? Question 3, what would make you actually look at this regularly? Okay, now I'm going to do something a little bit differently. I'm going to break the pattern here because I do not need another thing to do every single day. I want this to fit the lifestyle that I'm trying to live. Okay, so I'm going to ask AI for some suggestions to tackle this creatively. Okay, I don't really want to have a dashboard, like a physical, tangible thing that I have to look at or touch or maintain on a regular basis. I'm thinking that I would like to turn this into, what if we do like an acronym? Can we create an acronym that almost becomes a mantra that when I'm feeling overwhelmed or discouraged or like I'm behind, I can remind myself of the acronym that's associated with a mantra that will trigger my brain into recognizing my gains. How do you think we could accomplish that? Okay. Let's see what AI suggests. Okay, you just redesigned the whole delivery mechanism, and honestly, it's more aligned with gain thinking than a dashboard ever would be. Okay, so maybe I just messed up the entire deliverable for what we're supposed to be creating today. If so, sorry guys. A dashboard is something you maintain. I do not need anything else to maintain. A mantra is something you inhabit. Here's my thinking on how we accomplish this. The acronym should spell something that feels activating to you, a word you'd actually want to say to yourself in a hard moment. And each letter should map directly to one of your 3 gains in a way that's instantly retrievable without having to think. I also want to suggest to you guys that pre-AI, I never would have attempted to do something like this, like get creative about creating an acronym for a mantra. That was just cost prohibitive. It would waste too much mental energy. I would just never do something like that. But now with AI, this is an easy lift for AI. Okay, look at this. Option 1, sing, right? AI's already solved this for me. Sing, symptoms down, my body is healing. I, income stable, 6 months of solid ground. N, now I create, the space exists and I'm using it. G, gain, not gap, I measure backward always. Like, I already love this acronym. Symptoms down, income stable, now I create, gain, not gap. It's almost like a haiku. Rise. R, relief is real. My symptom load has dropped significantly. I, income holds. I built stability from zero. S, singing again. Creativity is back in my life. E, evidence exists. The gains are provable, not a story. See, now this one is good, but it feels too much of a mouthful. So I'm still going with option 1 so far, but let's look at option 3. Heal. Health is moving, fewer interruptions, more capacity. E, earnings steady, 6 consecutive months. A, art is alive. I sing 3 to 5 days a week now. L, look backward. That's where truth lives. And I'm going to go with sing. It was the winner from the beginning. Okay, now this feels way easier for me to memorize. Sing, that's the one. And notice what just happened. Your creativity metric became the mantra. The thing you reclaimed is now the word you'll say to yourself when you forget you've reclaimed it. That's not accidental. That's your subconscious doing gain work in real time. When I feel behind, overwhelmed, or discouraged, I sing. I like it. Symptoms down. My body is healing. I, income stable, 6 months of solid ground. N, now I create. The space exists and I'm using it. G, gain, not gap. I measure backward always. Now let's finish the review rhythm so we can wrap this into your final scoreboard. Since you don't want a physical dashboard to maintain, here's what I'm proposing. Weekly, when you feel the spiral starting, you sing. No check-in required, no dashboard open, just the mantra triggered by the feeling itself. Monthly, a single quiet moment, probably folded into your existing evening checkout or CEO operating system review, where you ask 3 questions. Are my symptoms trending down? Is baseline covered this month? Am I singing? I love those 3 questions. They're very simple. It will be easy for me to remember that, or even, write a Post-it note and put it on my fridge. Does that rhythm sound like something you'd actually maintain? Yes. I'm going to say yes and proceed. Okay, a personal progress scoreboard. Let me assemble everything. Setting your baselines. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. And let's see if we can look at this. Nope, it's not allowing me to expand this drawer, so I can't see what it's doing. Ooh, look at this. It's creating me an image. I love it. Gain, baseline, dashboard, health, finances, creativity, the review rhythm, scoreboard rules. Check-in, first scheduled monthly review. This concludes your personal progress scoreboard. You have 3 metrics that measure what actually mattered, all grounded in where you've actually been. Every time, would you like any changes? Yes, because I want to actually generate an image that I can take a screenshot of and save it as the wallpaper on my phone or my iPad. Please create an image out of this acronym that I can use as wallpaper for my iPhone and or my iPad that will help me remember this. Not sure, Claude is not very good at creating images, but since this doesn't have people or anything in it, maybe Claude can pull this off. Let me get the design specs. I'll build this as a tall portrait canvas. Okay, all right. Oh, look at that. Okay, now I create. The gain is real. All right, excellent. Okay, that looks really good. I like this. So let's download this file. Okay, let me come back to you guys. We're going to stop sharing and we are going to move into our insights, feedback, and Q&A. So, who ran the workflow with me? Raise your hand if you ran the workflow with me. All right, Richard. Okay, good. Richard, are you willing to come off mute and share what your experience was like?
Well, I'm a little slower than you are, so still working through it, trying.
Okay, excellent. What step are you on?
I just finished step 2.
Okay, excellent.
It's pretty easy. I mean, it does serve up the questions, and you don't really need to put a ton of context in there. But because you were talking, I did not speak, so that's one of the reasons I'm slower. I can't type anymore.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, this is great though.
Excellent. Great to hear it. Okay. Who else would like to share? Did you uncover any insights as you were working through this?
I only made it through step 2 as well.
Okay. Good.
I was watching you and trying to do it at the same time, but like he said, it is fairly easy. I wasn't having to put a lot of context in it, but it's already giving me, incredible insight between the gap and the gain, and I'm only on step 2.
Excellent. Good. Good to hear it. Good to hear it. How about questions? Did anybody have any questions? I think that there's some in the chat that I'm happy to respond to. Okay, Cheryl's looking for the workflow prompt. Yep, at the top of the chat, you can see the link to the public folder. You can't see that, Cheryl? Oh, maybe because you weren't in. Let me reshare that link. Got it. I will paste this down here so you can access the public folder, and we're on workshop 3 of the gap and the gain. There we go. Feel free to come off mute if you have a question you would like to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to take a look at the ones that are in the chat and see if I can add some additional information. So Jennifer's asking about burn through tons of tokens. Yeah. Jennifer, are you able to come off mute so we can dialogue about this? Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your question.
Well, you had said that you used Claude. This was early on. This was way at the beginning where you said you were using Claude. I'm shocked that I can remember this. It's shocking because usually my memory just, vanishes into thin air. But you were talking about Claude and you were talking about which of the programs within Claude that you were choosing. And you said that one of them you found burned through too many tokens. And I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't understand that
So
at all.
in almost all large language models, there are different types of reasoning models. So in Claude, for example, let me share my screen so I can point out what I'm talking about here. So right here, you can see on the bottom, there are different models that you can choose between. And each one of the models does something slightly different. So Sonnet 4.6, let's actually open a new Claude window so you can see this a little bit better. Down here, you get to choose Opus 4.6. This is most capable for ambitious work. It consumes usage limits faster than other models.
Oh.
Sonnet 4.6 is most efficient for everyday tasks, and Haiku 4.5 is fastest for quick answers. So if you're using AI as a glorified Google search, you can probably use Haiku. If you're using AI for most everyday tasks, Sonnet 4.6 reasoning model is probably going to be your best bet. But if you're doing, very detailed subject matter expert work, you might want to choose the Opus 4.6 model. Does that answer your question?
Close, I think. The follow-on question I would ask you would be, so this work that we're doing right now, this particular exercise, what would you consider that is in those things? It's not haiku, I don't think, but you chose sonnet for this, I think.
Yep, I chose right in the middle, which is the 4.6 that's most useful for everyday tasks.
Okay.
And I think that you probably could. I almost chose haiku because I was just running a demonstration and I didn't want the AI to get bogged down and then it would move through the demonstration faster. But I worked in haiku yesterday as an experiment and was just not impressed with the results. I had to keep asking the AI to do its work over again. So I think that you can probably use haiku for, if you're using AI for glorified Google, or you need to do a quick demonstration. Thanks, Richard. See you next time. But it is probably not what I would choose for most tasks.
And so the token language refers to how much consumption the actual thing is using before. Okay, gotcha.
I think that I guess I'm kind of a practical person, and I'll explain it in terms of think about fuel efficiency. Like a diesel pickup truck is designed to pull heavy loads, right? And the fuel efficient, it's doing specific heavy lifting. It's a tool that, and it burns through a lot of energy, right?
Yeah.
Or you have, a Prius, which, definitely doesn't pull a boat, but it will keep your fuel economy down and get you to the grocery store to do what you need to do. So that's how I would explain it.
That's great. That's a great analogy. Thank you. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you for that. That explanation. Really appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Glad you're here, Jennifer.
Thank you. It's been great.
Okay, so what other questions did we have in here? We had some questions on whisper flow. Was that Cheryl asking about whisper flow? Yes, I see her nodding. Yes, I like whisper flow because number one, it's faster, but there are certainly plenty of times I don't feel like talking to my computer, first thing in the morning when I haven't had my cup of tea yet. I'm not talking to anybody, and that includes AI. But there are also times when I'm trying to work through a complex thought and I'm an auditory processor. So whisper flow allows me to think out loud and AI fills in the gaps. I don't have to worry about saying something perfectly. With that said, though, Cheryl, and I saw your your comment about your Southern accent. There's definitely times when Whisperflow has no idea what I'm saying, and it's really funny to see how it translates the diction or the dictation. There's been, I can't think of an example right now, but there's been some really funny examples, and that's one of the things they need to do. I think there's probably a way to go into the Whisperflow settings and adjust how it thinks I'm saying things so it can learn your accent or your dialect for increased accuracy. It just hasn't been a huge pain point, so I haven't resolved that yet. Right now, I just laugh at the funny things it comes up with. But there's lots of text to dictation tools out there. I know that in our consortium of colleagues, people use, there's somebody in our group who's a fan of this text to dictation tool. It's just like a one-time payment of $60 or $80 and you get it for a lifetime. Whisperflow is a recurring monthly subscription, but I find that Whisperflow is more accurate. But there's a handful of text to dictation tools out there that you can use.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation. Because try as I may, sometimes what I end up sending to my husband I think is a really smart message. Comes out very interesting and it spurs lots of great conversations at dinner. And by the way, he is also Southern, so I'm just going to put that out there.
To that point, I'll share with you that there have definitely been times when I've worked with AI to send a text message to my husband because I want to be very thoughtful about what I'm saying, but also want to be very clear about the point I'm making. So I've definitely used AI to say, okay, listen, we need to send a text message to my husband and it needs to be like appropriate instead of, and AI has definitely helped me in those moments. Okay. All right. So yeah, happy to, if you guys want to come off of mute or share feedback, insights, questions, we do have about 9 minutes remaining before the top of the hour. And if you guys are complete, I'm happy to cut you loose and you can get another 9 minutes back in your day. Does anybody have any strong opinions on that?
I just wanted to say thank you for just how you did the acronym. I know that was kind of on the fly and the wallpaper, but I can see, I'm actually going to go back and look at and do look at it after this via YouTube and do it again a second time and create that acronym and wallpaper because I can see how it'd be beneficial for different people depending on where they're at, where you're at.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for that feedback, Vicky, because I definitely kind of took the AI off the rails for that particular deliverable.
That was great. I love that's what's fun about AI. I've recently told somebody it's like technology is finally caught up to my brain.
Yes.
And I know you know what I mean by that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
So thank you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Well, and I just uploaded the screen, the wallpaper to the public drive. So if anybody wants to take a look at that acronym or that deliverable, it's in the public drive. So thank you, Vicky, for sharing that and your feedback. And I see that Larry, you've got your hands up. How are you doing today?
Okay, that's much better.
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed the class. I had been signed on about 5 minutes earlier, and for some reason I could see everyone, but I had to re-sign on again. It was kind of a weird deal. I love the acronym also. I also loved how deep you went with this. I was a hardcore Grok person before this, and I've since switched over to Claude and have not looked back. Definitely a lot more value as far as like going deeper and especially with business related stuff. Now, quick, information, current events, the other tool is great, but this has been amazing. I've already connected Dropbox, done a bunch of other features connected to my system and made my workload and my flow of work a lot easier for me.
Excellent. Excellent. That's great to hear it, Larry. Yeah, I do remember we had a conversation, I think a couple weeks ago about Grok, and you were trying to understand the differences between the two.
Yeah, last week I was at the dentist paying for their kids' college for the next 20 years.
Right? Bless our hearts. And Larry, I feel like that's a perfect segue for me to offer a shameless plug. I do have other education available on AI, including an AI workflow expert certification course that happens at 2 p.m. on Thursdays. So if you would like to go deeper with any of these or access even more education, I'm going to put Claudia's email in the chat. And I would also like to share with you that Claudia is my digital operations assistant. I have created an AI agent to be the front door to all of our organization's email. And her brain gets updated weekly. She's getting smarter and smarter, and she's doing a fantastic job. So if you're interested in testing out what my email agent looks like, email Claudia and you will get a response, and you will have an experience to see what you think about that. But also reach out to Claudia to learn more about the AI Workflow Expert Certification. Like I said, that happens Thursdays, 2 p.m. Central. The AI Workflow Expert Certification is 9 modules, 9 weeks of education. It's based on a black belt type of system where we start with a gray belt, white belt, yellow belt, orange belt, green, blue, purple, brown, and black. And each one of them builds on the information you learn in the previous one. Fantastic course. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from students, but that would be if you want to create your own workflows, you want to create your own systems for your business, your personal life. We go much deeper on those topics in that. So yeah, email Claudia. We can get more information on any of those. And Cheryl's also sharing, as a PhD student, I see Perplexity as a graduate researcher, Anera as my librarian, ChatGPT as an undergrad assistant, and Claude as my executive assistant. Excellent. I'd be curious, Cheryl, would you be willing to share like how or why you chose each one of those tools for that specific function?
Sure. ChatGPT is really good at, like, if I ask it a question, it'll give me a response. I like that response better than I do like haiku. So, because I've played around enough with it. So if I just need like an answer response, explain tokens to me, because that was one earlier. ChatGPT gives a really good, simple, direct language because of the way I have that one kind of set up. Perplexity is really great if I want to deep dive into a particular area within my field of study, because it really pulls from the research, from the data. It always links to someplace else, but it kind of gives me a really good broad deep dive. I can focus it in as necessary, but I really like the way that it pulls. Anara is really great that whenever I drop in all my resources, I put in my paper. I want to make sure I have things cited correctly, because that's a big thing if I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But making sure that I have everything cited, and then it will actually go into the papers and it will show me where I've pulled that. Mm-hmm. So that I can confirm it. So I like the way that helps me to actually go through all the literature, because like my current paper has like 212 resources, so trying to keep all that straight, is a little more difficult, but it does a really great job of assisting with that. Then Claude, like I love Claude. I love Claude for so many things. I find it best like if I need like really in-depth work, such as I've uploaded, because of my field of study, I use the APA literature guide, which is dense. So I've been able to set up a personal skill with the APA guide. I broke it down by chapters, yada, yada, yada. And then once I get finished with my paper in Anara, which does not do a good job of citing and formatting and making sure my language and tenses and all the other stuff is correct, then I can take my paper, I can drop it in Claude, and Claude will base it against the full APA guide to make sure that I have formatted it correctly and I have it in the right verse. Mm-hmm. I mean, not verse, but grammar. So I use it in that way. Grok, I use to entertain myself. It's my husband's favorite one because it's just entertaining to use. But that's how.
Excellent. Well, that is very thoughtful. I love how you put those different tools and pieces together. That is fantastic. And I've been doing all of those same things using Claude Cowork on my desktop. So if anybody's interested in that, we are going to be offering a CEO operating system peer group coming up soon. That is not available just yet, but will be available soon. And with that, we are at the top of the hour. Happy Thursday, everybody. I look forward to seeing everyone again next week for our AI action class. Or are we skipping next week? We might be skipping next week. I have to look at the calendar. Let's look at the calendar, guys. All right, have a great week. I'll catch y'all next time.
I dropped mine in the chat for you, my email.